Hi there, and welcome to the little apartment on the prairie. Please forgive the lighting again today. It's mid-afternoon, so the lighting should be better, except it's very overcast out. It's getting ready to snow. This is what happens in the winter in Nebraska. Also, please forgive my voice. I seem to be getting sick again, which apparently also happens in the winter everywhere. So I'm doing the best I can. I want to thank everyone who's checked out my channel. Thank you if you subscribed. And I know that the videos could use some much better editing, and that's going to happen in the future. I'm still learning how to do that. But I've learned that if I wait until I know how to do something perfectly to do it, it's never going to get done. So I'm starting where I am. I want to encourage you, if there's something you want to do, whether it's make a YouTube channel or anything else, start where you are. And you can get better as you go. You can learn as you go. So the other day I posted a video talking about visiting a food pantry and what to expect when you visit a food pantry, how to find food pantries in your area. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to preserve some of the food you might get at a food pantry and what to do with some of the items, especially when you get huge amounts of certain items. Of course, you can always Google, type in rutabaga recipes or what to do with pistachio nuts, and you'll find lots of ideas. But we'll go over some of the common items and how you can deal with them. Let's start with produce. When you get produce at a food pantry, it's usually at or past its prime. You're not usually going to get unripe bananas at a food pantry. You're going to get bananas that are ripe enough to make banana bread with. Some food pantries don't give a lot of fresh produce, but some do, especially in the summertime, and it's wonderful, but you just got to know that you've got to do something with it soon. So you want to sort through the produce, throw out any bad produce, compost it, feed it to your chickens, whatever, and wash it right away and then put it away. If there's some of it that you want fresh, plan to eat that right away, because if you want slices of fresh tomato on your sandwich, those tomatoes probably aren't going to be suitable for that for very many days. You can cut and freeze fruit for smoothies, and it doesn't matter if it's overripe. You can freeze bananas for banana bread, and you can also use them in muffins, and there are also cookies using pureed or mashed bananas. What I do when I'm going to freeze bananas like that is I peel them, I cut them up into pieces, I either mash them with a fork or I throw them in my food processor and puree them, and then I freeze them in 1 or 2 cup portions in Ziploc bags. I know the plastic bags aren't the best. There goes Sassafras the kitten. She's probably planning on sneaking up on Whiskers and pouncing on her. So we might hear a cat fight in a minute. Anyway, I usually use Ziploc bags right now because I have limited freezer space and I can fit a lot of stuff in a Ziploc bag smushed flat. You can freeze and dice onions and then later use them for cooking. You don't have to cook them before you freeze them, just chop them up and freeze them. It comes in really handy. Then when you're making chili, you just throw in a handful. If you want some sauteed onions on top of a burger, just heat some oil in a pan, toss in a handful of diced frozen onion. You don't have to thaw it first or anything. You can also dehydrate diced onions, and those work really well in something like chili or soup that you're going to cook for a while. You just throw it in the pot with your other ingredients, and while you cook, it rehydrates. You can freeze or can or dehydrate a lot of types of produce if you know how to do that. And specifically dealing with those different things is something maybe I'll talk about in another video. But a dehydrator is a great tool. You can get one inexpensively. I bought the cheapest one Walmart had, and it works great for preserving a lot of produce. The next thing I wanted to cover is dairy foods. You can freeze butter and cheese. Both will freeze really well for a long time. You can also freeze milk. Not everybody knows that, but you can. I freeze it in wide mouth glass jars, like canning jars, don't put it in the narrow mouth jars because those are more likely to break. Leave a lot of space when you fill up the jar because when milk freezes, the ice will expand. Sometimes I don't put the lids on it until after it freezes, just in case I didn't leave enough space. That way my jar won't break. It is also possible to can milk. You need a pressure canner for that. I'm not going to explain how to do it in this video, but you can look up instructions online if you're a canner. Another thing I like to do when I get a lot of milk from the food pantry is make some yogurt. And I am going to do a video showing how I make yogurt in my crock pot. It's really easy. If you've got a crock pot, that's all you need. You don't need any other special equipment. Meat. Freeze any meat from the food pantry that you're not going to eat right away. It's possible to can meat with a pressure canner. You can just can ground beef or chunks of pork or whatever. You can also make it into beef stew or chili or soup or whatever you want and then can that product. Of course, you can also freeze things like chili or stew to have on hand later when you don't feel like cooking. And then finally, you're going to get a lot of dry goods at the food pantry. Canned goods, boxed food, things like that. Look at the expiration dates. Use the oldest product first. Expiration dates do not mean that on this date, like at the stroke of midnight, the item is going to all of a sudden go bad. However, it does tell you how old a food is, and you'll want to use the oldest item first. Cereal is one thing I used to get a lot of when I lived in Ohio. I haven't got as much of it here in Nebraska. But I mean, I would come home with like 3 boxes of Corn Flakes or Bran Flakes. And the next month I'd go back and I'd get more. And I don't know what one person was supposed to do with all those Corn Flakes. Well, you can look up recipes online, type in something like cornflake recipes. It's not going to tell you how to make cornflakes. It's going to tell you what to make with cornflakes. But you can use them in muffins, in cookies, in dessert bars. I made a bunch of Raisin Bran muffins. They were really good when I added some mashed banana. But I made a lot of muffins with cornflakes too. Basically, you can take your favorite muffin recipe and substitute cornflakes, wheat flakes, bran flakes, any kind of cereal that's a flake. Use half the amount of flour the recipe calls for, and for the other half, use the cereal instead. Put your milk or other liquid ingredients in a bowl with the cereal. Let it sit about 10 minutes to get soft, and then go ahead and add your other ingredients. By the way, if you have bran flakes, add some raisins, make Raisin Bran muffins. They're really good. Oatmeal is something I used to get a lot of too. I haven't gotten much of it lately, but you can make bread, cookies, muffins with it. Look up recipes. You can also make muffins or cookies out of flavored oatmeal. So if you get apple cinnamon flavored oatmeal or brown sugar, maple syrup flavor, whatever, just make apple cinnamon oatmeal cookies or whatever flavor it is. And that can turn out really well. Dried fruit. For some reason, I've received so much dried fruit from food pantries. This includes raisins, but also things like dried cranberries and dried cherries. You can add them to salads, throw a handful on your cereal, put them in muffins or cookies. By the way, oatmeal cookies with dried cherries are delicious. And I'm going to include my recipe for oatmeal cookies with dried cherries in the description for this video. Beans. If you're not a big bean eater, if you're living on a limited income, I suggest you learn to like beans because seriously, they are about the world's most perfect food. They're cheap. You can cook them in a million ways. They're nutritious. You know, they're not too high in calories. They're low in fat, unless you cook them in a way that uses a lot of fat. They've got lots of protein, lots of fiber, vitamins, and minerals. They're really good for you. Learn to like beans. But you can add them to things like soup or chili. You can also make black bean brownies. And I'm going to put my black bean brownie recipe in the description as well. And I swear you can feed these brownies to children and they will not know there are beans in them unless you tell them. I suggest you don't. I wouldn't tell the adults either, at least not until after they've eaten a few and liked them. Instant potatoes. You can make potato bread, potato pancakes, things like that with instant mashed potatoes. Canned vegetables, add them to soup, puree sweet veggies such as carrots, and make muffins with them. And then there's canned fruit. You can freeze it to add to smoothies along with any fresh fruit that you've frozen. You can also dehydrate canned fruit, and canned pineapple, canned peaches, canned pears. They are going to taste like candy if you dehydrate them. You won't believe it. Your kids will love it. It's like healthy and good for you. And it's easy to make. So those are just a few of the things, whiskers move, that I thought of, you know, that I get a lot from the food pantry and how I preserve them and how I use them up. Of course, the dry goods are going to be able to sit on your pantry shelf for a long time. You don't have to worry about canning them or whatever, but you may need to know what to do with some of the items. And if you've got some items from the food pantry that you don't know what to do with, please share that in the comments. Maybe people will have suggestions. Or if you have some other suggestions for how to use up or preserve things from the food pantry, please share it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please subscribe to hear more. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.